I was going to say, if they're in the amphitheater July 12th,
You don't want to go.
negative, Roger. There are not enough misters.
But God, I love to see them in concert.
1 minute.
What it does, here's what it does. And then one more. And then one more. Final.
Ready?
Tentative final.
Alrighty, we're going to call our first budget developmental workshop together, please. I'll turn it over to David and Brandy.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and at this point in time, I will turn it over to Greg.
Yes, thank you very much. This is our first budget workshop for the FY 2024-2025 budget year. And so today what we're going to do is we're going to walk through where we are in the budget preparation process, talk about some recommendations that will be made to the board regarding the budget and the basis of those recommendations. We will also discuss the estimate of taxable values that was received from the property appraiser's office, along with our constitutional officer's budget requests, some upcoming changes to the BOCC departments. We'll talk about the budget requests that have been received from our nonprofit agencies, and then we'll go over the potential costs of COLAs, FRS increases, and CHP increases. I will also go over our fund balance projections for the general fund and the sheriff fund. And then the county administrator, we have some golf course info in here, and he's going to elaborate on where we are on our golf course operations. But much of what we're going to talk about today, much of our budget in progress is based on those projections from our meeting that we had in April, but with a little bit of fine tuning. First, our status on our budget preparation. So we received our property appraiser's estimate of our gross taxable values for operating purposes. Jess, can you go back to the budget preparation status slide? Yes, that one. We received that on June 1. As I understand it, the property appraiser's office, they're still working diligently to ensure the fairness and accurateness of our values. And so I do expect that by the time we get to our certification of values, there will be some changes. But right now we have some uncertainty regarding what those impacts will be. So also all of our constitutional officers, they have submitted their initial budget requests, and we'll look at each of those in a few slides from now. We have conducted meetings with all of our BOCC departments, and our department directors have taken a much more hands-on approach this year to their 2024-2025 budget. We hold them accountable for these budgets, and so we're dumping them into the deep end of the pool and getting them much more involved. And we have reviewed the current fiscal year revenues and expenses with each department through at least March and in some cases through April. And June 1 was also our deadline for our nonprofit agencies to request funding for next fiscal year. There were 3 agencies that requested funding, and of those, all 3 were submitted timely and complete. Next slide, please, Jess. As we get to our budget recommendations, as you all know, the last several years have been an absolute whirlwind of growth and change for the BOCC. In addition, we experienced an unexpected challenge this fiscal year, and that has consumed a lot of our time and our energy, and it required us to develop a strategy for maintaining the existing state of operations through that rather overwhelming financial difficulty. Because of these things, staff's initial recommendation to the board regarding the budget is going to be making very little operational changes for next fiscal year, except for what the board has already approved at our meeting in April. And we need to give ourselves some breathing room basically now so we can settle into what our new normal state of operations is going to be. So the only current changes that are being proposed are to provide a COLA to the BOCC and all the constitutional offices. We're currently looking at 3%. That could change between now and when we turn the budget over. Absorbing the CHP increase, and we'll talk a little bit more about that on an upcoming slide. Hold steady on adding any new positions with some very limited exceptions. We're not proposing to increase any existing tax or assessment rates except for the CPI increase that's part of the sewer rates, and that's previously been approved. The fund balance projections, they haven't changed that much since we had our meeting in April. We've really only had one more month of financial reports since that time, and those new positions that were approved in April, they're just now starting to hit the books. We onboarded them, a lot of them June 1, but we haven't actually started seeing them hit the financial reports yet. So we're going to continue to monitor and, if necessary, adjust those fund balance projections to make sure we don't have any other unexpected challenges for the remainder of this fiscal year. Other specific justifications for our recommendations, our basis is this. You know, in 21-22, we implemented the Evergreen Compensation Study. While that was badly needed, that was a hefty increase in personnel costs, and that included all of our BOCC and all of our constitutional offices. We have initiated the new Florida $15 per hour minimum wage requirement ahead of the September 2026 deadline, and once the employees receive their next COLA, there will only be a handful of employees within the BOCC that are less than $15 an hour, with the majority of those being our seasonal and our part-time employees. And from my knowledge, all the constitutional officers are ahead of the schedule as well on the new minimum wage requirement. And so countywide, we have very few employees that are currently making less than $15 an hour. We have also added a substantial number of positions over the last several years. Data from our finance office shows positions for the BOCC alone going from 127 January 1 of 2020, which was pre-COVID, of course, to 159 January 1 of 2022, 168 January 1, 2023, up to about 184 now. And most of these positions were public safety, and now we've included our golf course in that as well. We have also undergone a major reorganization of administration, including adding our 2 assistant county administrators. We've added grant staff and also our countywide emergency radio system contract management staff. So these are the most substantial changes that we have undergone, but it doesn't even touch on the workload of staff and the number of projects that are being juggled.
This is, and we got a lot to inject here, but basically our approach to the budget for this coming up fiscal year is, let's take a breath. We have over the past 5 years, we and also the citizens have seen a lot of change. We got a lot of balls in the air. We've had a lot of balls in the air. Our little county has juggled grants to the magnitude of a large county. We have increased our public safety dramatically over the past 5 years. It is time for our citizens to be able to take a break. It's time for us to be able to see how some of this stuff that we've got shakes it out. We have not had a month yet of where we understand where everything shakes out on the new positions that are being added as we speak. So as your primary executive officer is my duty, and I think it's we have to hold still. We have to take care of our people, which would be a COLA, but hold still. We can't, they've got national elections coming up. We've got our revenue stabilization fund is depleted. Our sewer access fee fund is depleted. The sheriff's office fund needs fund balance. There comes a time when you're time to grow, and there's a time when you sit back and you try to save money and put some money in the bank. We have expended money. We got a $30 million loan out right now. We still haven't, when it was split, unbeknownst to everybody, that screwed it all up, so we don't know where we stand with that. We're going to probably end up having to have some sort of loan to pay for that. Over the past 5 years, we've increased all county staff. I mean, everybody across the board have had increases. We've met the new wage laws, as Brandy has mentioned. This year also, we're getting ready to open a golf course. That's coming up. That's a business move that we're making, but it's a big business move. We've got, like I said before, we've got the funds that we have to do. We're also starting up a radio system. All right, the radio system becomes a requirement for maintenance that was not done before. It was not done. We have to do that. That's over $200,000 right there in of itself, and we're still working on that budget. We've got some major issues. The clerk's office, one of the people that we are looking at, one of the positions, one of the very, very few, is the clerk's office. They've got to have somebody, as you all know, there was a finding in our audit. It's due to nobody's negligence. It's just flat out overwork and not enough people to do the job. Because we've got so much money coming in, they need a position. We've got, so that is one of the few that I'm going to recommend. We're looking also at the potential, and I wasn't going to give suggest any public safety increases, all because they've had so much dramatic increases. I was considering none, but the only thing I'm going to consider is Louis has presented a program called Community Paramedic Program. And the only reason I would consider that in the budget, and we're still doing work on it, is it's something that's outside of the box. It has the potential. It's not, anybody can say, I need people. You got to justify that, number one, and that doesn't always fix the problem. That just doesn't necessarily. And I could easily come to y'all and justify right now another crew for an ambulance. We could do it all day long. But we're saying no. They said, no, we don't want to do that. What we want to do is potentially start this community paramedic program, which would be about $112,000. What it does, though, is we've got to learn more about it, but it's being done nationwide. It's outside of the box. It's a new way. Insurance companies like it. Our patients, our citizens, it would be a better service to our citizens, cheaper for our citizens, and also cut down wear and tear and potentially delay us being able to having to hire more positions in the future. So we're considering that, and that's something that I may very well ask to put back in the budget. But past that, the only reason it has a revenue offset as well. So past that, there's just no other positions, because there comes a time when you need to say stop. And as your executive officer, I'm going to be saying, let's stop. Let's hold still with where we got. Let's take care of our people. We've got some major opportunities potentially through our EDC that we're working with two folks, trying to get some more industry and business into the county. That very well, based on if Triumph money is used, we will have to participate in that process. So therefore, we're going to be at risk for a little bit. That's time to grow. That's time to grow. That's a potential. We're working with the DEP and NG Wade on a potential issue of taking over the Northeast sewer system. That's a real. We had a conference call today. Chuck, I was halfway through Commissioner Hess's when we were talking to him. But anyway, that's moving forward, and there's a possibility that could go. That's the reason we got to ramp up and build up some of our funds, because all this stuff takes money, and in order for us to make that next step, we need to slow down, and we don't need to put that. And I don't feel like it's a burden to put on the taxpayers at this point in time to ask for any type of increase because we need to see how all this new stuff that we've done over the past 5 years, we need to let it settle out just a little bit. We've got new positions. We need to see how it settles out this year. And so anyway, we've got, we were expecting a much higher, taxable value coming back. I've asked Ed to look at it because the math, the run rates and the trending in our accounts are significantly higher than what they have been. I don't understand the 10% increase, only the 10%. But that he is committed to work on that, and hopefully that will come in considerably higher. But just the math of that. So, there's a couple of things I talked to him about. I'm concerned about what value the home's average square foot of the home is that's being utilized. National trends now, so where the national trend on home values is up around $324,000 now nationwide, and that's the value. Not what he would use, but seriously, hopefully we're somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 on a square foot basis, or for a home, and then hopefully about $150 to $200 on a square foot basis. But I've asked him to look at that because we have to. The biggest thing is we just as he's done is it has to be fair and equitable. So anyway, that's the basis of bringing all this together. And I said I wasn't going to do that first, but I felt like probably before we got far, you need to understand what we were looking at coming into this budget. So when we turn a budget over to you in July, it'll reflect what I've talked about. Okay?
Workshop's over. No, just kidding. And since David said that the next budget workshop will be July 15th prior to the regular board meeting, and that's where the budget will get turned over to you. That workshop will basically be high level. Here's what the budget we're giving you contains. So back to our estimate of values up here on the screen, as David mentioned, we are looking at a 10% increase in values, and this comparison is to our corrected ad valorem revenue for the current fiscal year of $15.3 million in comparison to what we would collect based on the June 1 estimate. Also still fluid, as David mentioned. And so that's $16.9 million, and that is assuming that we stay at that 7.9 millage rate. And this equates to that 10%. It's about $206 million in additional taxable value. And just so you're aware, this puts us still about $102 million in value behind the original certification that we had for this fiscal year that we're in now. And if you remember back to our April meeting, we threw around 12% as the number we would need to hit to avoid a request for millage rate increase, but don't be alarmed because we haven't hit that yet. We're still working through that. But there is not any indication at this time that we would need to ask for a higher millage rate. Or that we can't expect the valuation once it's certified to come in a little bit more and we'll have some more revenue here, or that we won't be able to make some adjustments somewhere to make it work within the 7.9. But this is one of the most significant reasons why we are recommending holding steady for next fiscal year.
Before you go to the next slide, Commissioner Thomas has a
Quick question.
Go ahead.
Please remind me, we settled in, was it 14% increase in the current year over the past year? Is that what we settled in at?
It was 15.61, I believe, was our actual increase.
Okay.
Oh, now I've messed up my...
16%.
Okay.
As of about 20 minutes ago, the current taxable value is about $20 million more than what we turned into you guys, as of about 20 minutes ago. That's taxable value, that's different from this.
So again, still very fluid. We're still working through it. Their office is still working through it. We're looking at it every way we can, and we're not proposing to change that millage rate at this time.
And like I said before, naturally, once it's turned over to you guys, you recommend what you want, but even if it does come in over that 12%, we need to save some money. We need to put some money back. We've spent so much.
I agree with that. We've done a lot.
We've done a lot. There's been a lot, and there comes a time when we've got to take a breath. And And that's where that, no matter where it comes in, we're in that every little bit that we can start putting back. We need to do that because we've got another tranche of money that we need to spend, and we need to have that fluidity.
One more question, if you don't mind. So you've already said that you haven't made a decision on the community paramedics yet, so I know you're still gathering information.
Right.
Do you have a feel for, would that, if you do pull the trigger on that, would you use current staff and they're going to have to increase qualifications, or are you going to need additional staff to accommodate that?
We would need a staff person and a half. We would have to increase by 1.5. Lou, do you want to get up and give, or Kelly, give a brief on, just real brief on what you've told me? Yeah, I put Louis on the spot, but basically we would have to, it's a restructuring a little bit of the the administration part of it, but then you take it from there, Louis.
Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. It's a restructure, and the reason we say 1.5, it would be a one new position essentially, and then an internal promotion with one of my current staff. And what that would do is it would give us enough administrative staff to start building the program out.
So is it based on the fact that if you implement this, you're going to have less trips to Tallahassee, you're going to save over here, but it's going to cost a little more with the new program?
Yes, sir, and Chief Lewis has actually implemented this program before, so before I get too deep into it, I don't want to say something wrong, so stand up if I do, but it does, it is less trips to the hospital, low acuity calls, we'll treat on scene. We can establish contracts, I believe, with some of the health insurance providers, so we can bill for that treating on scene. So,
Does it impact people that do not have insurance?
Chief?
It says on here, I'm looking at FEMA's guideline for it. I mean, it's actually in their guideline, and it encompasses everybody. Ralph?
It'll include everybody, and it could help substantially the people without insurance, because instead of having a $5,000 to $10,000 bill from the hospital, it'll be a lot smaller with this program.
Gotcha.
Are they going to be, would your paramedic be 24/7, or would you run them just, you understand what, would that paramedic run a 24/7?
Yes, we'll use existing staff for that program, and the staff that we are requesting is to free up these individuals where they have the ability to perform the duty.
Throughout the U.S., FEMA saying it reduces health system expenditures, becomes self-sustaining, and enhancing public health and safety by meaningfully supporting the health and social welfare needs of the community. So
Everything I've read about it seems to be a good program, and I think you're planning on utilizing your battalion chiefs to initially get it started off. Because they're not assigned to an ambulance, and they have a quick strike vehicle, and so the ask here is more for an administrative part to handle it. But what we see this as is, and we've got to get more information, is a way forward that we've got to solve this problem, because insurance has went crazy, costs at the hospital have went crazy. Our run times on our vehicles are insane. We're going to have to add more staff because we've got more people in the county. Somewhere we got to try something different that is tried and true, that we can curtail that. And I think this would be, it seems to be working nationally, so we want to try to give it a shot.
Very good.
Thank you.
You ready?
We're ready.
Jess, can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. On this slide, these are our initial requests from our constitutional officers, including a 3% COLA for their employees. So these are the amounts that what the general fund would need to transfer to each one of their offices to fully fund their budget. One caveat here is that CHP increase is still undetermined, and we'll touch on that more specifically in a few slides. But the implication is that CHP comes in more or less than we are currently using as our estimate. Then there will be revised budget requests from these offices. As David mentioned, the request from the clerk's office and our clerks at a conference today, it includes a new position for finance, Finance office has taken on the property appraisers and supervisor of elections books, and they have done that without adding any staff. And they have operated finance with less than 7.5 positions since prior to COVID, even while taking on more employees to process payroll for, and more accounts receivable and payable transactions, an increased number of grants, and also our $30 million loan program. As for the property appraiser, and he may want to speak on this, you'll notice that that budget shows a decrease, and that is mostly due to a $53,000 decrease in operating expenses, operating costs, and then $98,000 in capital outlay, and I believe those are equipment and software related. And do you have anything else you'd like to add about your budget since you're here?
That's just the savings from us upgrading our system so that we're not having to have so many vendors on the outside doing things for us. Getting the payoff now.
The sheriff's office, they have requested 4 additional law enforcement officer positions, as well as they have some increases in their contracted inmate medical and meals costs. The supervisor of elections, that is a decrease from the current year, and that was also due to a reduction in capital outlay of about $70,000, and that was for some ADA printers and laptops that were mandated by the state, and those have been purchased in the current fiscal year, so that comes out of his budget for next year. And I just want to point out that we have not yet had the opportunity to meet with each of the constitutional officers. This is all just what they have sent me, first shot across the bow. And so that will be happening in the next several weeks as we refine the budget to turn over to you by July 15th. Next slide, Jess. This is where we kind of go over the increases that we will seek to add for next fiscal year, shown up on the slide. And I want to point out that it is possible that even if we add the capacity, the budget capacity for these increases in the budget, it doesn't necessarily mean we'll move forward with these things immediately on October 1. We still need time to assess some of these things, and so there'll be ongoing discussions throughout the remainder of the fiscal year. Obviously, our paramedic program is not included on here. That's another ongoing discussion. And so specifically, as David mentioned, our radio system, we've taken over the contract management of our countywide system, and that includes all the inventory management, repair and maintenance of actual radios and our dispatch control boards. We also need to make sure we're holding Motorola accountable for everything that's included in their contract. That's inspection of towers and tower equipment, tracking warranty periods. So it's a tremendous amount of work that is currently being done with one staff person, and it remains to be seen whether that is going to be sustainable into the future.
And that's one of the, we're still gathering more information, especially on the towers. It's what is going to be required, not necessarily for this year because they'll be brand new this year, but it'll be what is the year cost of those. You got to have somebody to climb it to change the lights. You got to have inspections, I know, every 4 years, and what is that going to entail in cost? And so we're still flushing out that, as well as a couple other things. We'll have generators. We've got 6 generators we'll have to maintain there. But one of the things that we have done with the new generators we bought for the radio system, as well as the wastewater plant and all the other generators and standby equipment that we have, we've entered into a contract with, not a contract, but we've had, everything is now being done through CAT. They do all of our generator work before, but we consolidated to get better pricing, consolidate all those bypass, change oil and stuff like that. So we've consolidated all of that. But we got to flesh all that out. But also one of the things, and going back to Commissioner Thomas, real quick, back to the paramedic program, and not trying to sell it, but just one of the points I wanted to make is one of the opportunities it gives us with our new radio system is right now we're looking at a module to put onto the back of the radios that are in all of our, it can go in all of our ambulances, fire trucks and potentially sheriff's vehicles as well that have the stationary radio in the vehicle, and what it'll do is create a souped up hotspot that will be when we go on scene. Instead of having to rely now on a Verizon hotspot, we'll have a souped up hotspot that'll extend out into some houses, et cetera, that we'll be able to run then for this teledoc or for this program, a teledoc. We'll be able to get on teledoc so that the paramedic, they can actually talk to a doctor with that patient. So not that we're doing it for that, but that allows us, this new radio system has that capability. It's just we couldn't see about the cost to do that.
So as you're currently set up, you're using your handheld as talking back to the tower and not jumping it through the vehicle?
No, it's through the vehicle. I'm talking about the radio system will allow us to go Wi-Fi.
So just the data side of it.
Data side of it, that's right.
Your signal is already jumping on the vehicle and going to the tower, so you get more power coming out of that vehicle than you do that hand.
That's exactly right.
But you're just saying the data would take the same path.
That's right. That's right. So what that does is that frees us up. One is all, it's just the dependability. That way, we can, anywhere in the county, when they do a EKG or whatever, they can send that to the hospital without, in Smith Creek, it gets sketchy, even with the new tower out there. This way, we have full coverage, and it also, like I say, that teledoc portion of this paramedic program, this becomes real then we can, everybody in the county, we can get to them. Even if they don't have internet in their house, we can go in and do that.
Well, one of the things I'm looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, is when you're saying that, it's just like the Baker Acts and Larchman Acts. Y'all can telehealth right there with a counselor.
Right.
That's one of the things that show to save time and money.
Yeah, it saves time and money, and having that souped up service makes all the, and it's free for us.
So I assume that would be critical for Sheriff's Department as well, and not.
They already got it. Mobile response. You can do the signal right now from their phone.
Yeah.
It kind of looks like it.
Yeah, we do it now, but it's done with a Verizon hotspot, basically. But this will be a super
Cellular connection.
That's right. It's have a cellular connection. That's right. This way we got a radio connection. So anyway, I apologize. I agree.
It's okay. It's fine. That's what we're here for.
I've never done that.
Talk about these, never. Our next bullet on the slide are overlap for training replacements. We have some staff that is set to retire or move on from the county next fiscal year. So we'll have a period of time where we have 2 people in the same position as new staff is trained. Obviously, the more complex the job is, the longer the overlap for that training period is going to be. We had some one-time purchases that were for this fiscal year we're in now, but when we had our difficulty this year, we deferred those, and so we have put those back into the budget for next fiscal year, as well as we had explored going paperless software for our probation department. That's coming back into the budget. And this is a fun one that David may want to talk some more about, the state requiring 24/7 monitoring of local government websites beginning June 1, 2025. And right now, we know there is going to be some costs associated with that, but we won't necessarily have that information today, and so.
Yeah, I met with Mel on that, Melissa today, and Michelle, and we're still gathering information. The property appraisers, they want to join on with us to as part of this. I talked to you a little bit about it, Commissioner Thomas. We're looking at about $125,000 increase if we went with what is currently proposed. In talking to Michelle and Melissa, the statutory or the language that was in the act is rather kind of all over the board and non-specific. But so one of the things that we're going to do is Mel and Michelle are going to reach out to and have a meeting with our insurance company, FACT, to work with them on what they want to see as far as conforming with this act. and what is really needed and what's not. And Joe's going to be a part of that as well as Debbie, and we'll formulate from there. I want the insurance company to kind of drive that boat, because if something happens, that's who we're going to go. They're going to be our partner if we were to get hacked and ransomware or whatever they call that stuff. So that number is 100. We know 125K. That's 24-hour, 24/7 coverage of watching the system. That's what we've gotten currently. That's the quote that we've gotten. That's over and above what we currently pay on a per year basis. Like I say, that doesn't include the property appraiser's office, the supervisor of election. They already have something like this through the state as part of their system, as well as the sheriff's department. The clerk is investigating their side, and Lisa, I think you're covered as well. So that's a good thing about some of them. They already covered through the state, but we're getting more information on it. And like I say, I wanted to bring our insurance provider, since we have a cyber policy through them, bring them into it and say, what do you see this thing? What does this mean now? What do we need to do?
Is that something we can add through Expired Technologies to get them to do it, or is that?
Yeah, that's who we're currently working with. Yeah.
Is that the
Yeah.
process they hear?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it was just a couple years ago that FACT, we added the cyber coverage, and we did that at no additional cost. We just recognized the need there. So that's a good move, because that was done before the statute went in place. It's an unfunded mandate. So I'd like to see, hopefully we can piggyback on what we're doing there. And if we need to take that to the Board of Trustees for FACT to expand that,
Right.
that'd certainly be a good conversation.
That would be a good conversation. And like I say, we're, Melissa and Michelle, they're going to be lining that up, and maybe when we get that, we can holler at you and see if you can come and join that, because you're right, it's a severe unfunded mandate.
Have we talked to our representatives about maybe adding this to the training?
That's what I've already talked to Commissioner Thomas about.
I have, and also Chris dealing with Small County Coalition, because it's going to affect all the small counties, and so we're looking at that.
Yeah. That's, this got a potential to, one of the things, to spiral out of control if you don't watch it. And the grant is good, but it's 1 year, or, you know what I mean? They cannot fund it, and
Get us a year to get a carve out for fiscally constrained, it'll be good.
exactly. So it's, anyway, we got, the problem is it seems to be, I haven't read it, but Michelle and Melissa have, and it's vague, to say the least. So what they say is, no, it says you shall, or there's all over the board. So that's another one of them we're still not sure where that's going to pan out.
What we have on this slide, I mentioned that we had 3 nonprofit agencies submit complete and timely requests for funding for next fiscal year. The only change here in funding requests is a decrease from the senior center shown up there on the slide as WCSC, and it is related to our maximum annual funding set forth in the administrative regulation, that AR 307 of $100,000 maximum annual funding. Also, I would like to point out that the most recent revision to the AR requires that staff does not add these funding amounts to the budget unless the board provides specific direction to do so, either at or before the final budget is adopted. So the current budget in progress does not include these requests for these funding agencies. Keep Wakulla County Beautiful, that is supported with solid waste funds, and then our other 2 agencies, the Senior Center and We Care, those are both supported by the general fund. So the board could...
Is We Care the same as Red Cross? You didn't get it?
They are not the same. We Care is the Capital City Medical Network, and they submitted their request. I did not receive a request from Red Cross this year.
Past the deadline?
It is past the deadline. They have requested $5,000 annually, and I have been in contact with their office for the reimbursements for this fiscal year and made them aware of the deadline ahead of time, so I don't know if I know you had a presentation for Red Cross, so I don't know if the presentation people are the same people that prepared the funding requests and they've lost things, but as the board, you could make a choice to either not fund them or fund them with some exception. That could happen, and you could also choose to give staff direction today on these, or you can wait till a future meeting.
Are we going to get the applications if we want? Do you have the applications if we want to see them?
Yes, I do.
And you can walk through the changes in the AR from last year to now?
Yeah, and that's pretty simple. We capped that funding at $100,000, and we basically just required, the requirements for what they included in their application did not change. It was really, you're going to have to sign an agreement each year with us, and those come to you in September. We're going to memorialize the dates you need to submit your quarterly request to us, so it was pretty simple. And so I know we maybe had some miscommunication, or Red Cross just missed the deadline. I don't know. So that can be a further conversation the rest of this budget year.
Well, they sent 3 people to replace Miss Sharon at the last meeting, so
That was the marketing team.
maybe that's the indication.
Well, and
Martin got to ask for the money.
Miss Sharon is who I typically deal with on the reimbursements and who I was working with on the thing. And so when I
They're
heard
$5,000 each year, right?
5,000 is what they have previously requested, yes.
I mean, it's a small amount in the scope of things.
Yes, it is.
Let me just, before we move on, so it's the board's discretion, even though the applications were due by June 1st, it's the board's discretion if they pop up, or?
I would assume so. There's nothing preventing the board from directing staff to add something to the budget at any time, I don't believe.
You guys can waive your policy if you so choose.
I would definitely do that for Red Cross. I mean, it looks like we're heading into
Do we make a motion?
How do we need them
No, we
this
don't.
year, but we may.
Okay,
We need a request first.
okay. Just asking.
They may be flush with cash and not need it.
Yeah, well, they do a lot though for the citizens, so.
They do a lot.
Getting into tornado or
Hurricane season, absolutely.
Yeah. Jess, can you go to the next slide, please?
I knocked on wood.
So on this slide, we're looking at the cost for our COLA, our cost of living allocation, for the for the FRS increase and the CHP increase. All 3 of these increase estimates are based on the same cumulative changes, and that includes the new positions that the board approved to start this past June 1, but now for the full fiscal year next year, and then our overlap of employees and things we've already talked about. So all of these numbers, although it says COLA, it also includes, we went from having this many positions and now the board has approved us to have this many. So that's rolled into this $615,000 for our COLA, and then $225,000 for our FRS increase. And while it is the lowest increase proportionally that the state has passed in my 13 years, when you add those new positions in for a full year, and now you've given a COLA, and that FRS is now based on a higher hourly rate, it makes it substantial here. And then let's talk about our CHP a little more specifically. Right now, what uncertainty we have, hopefully in the next week or 2, we'll get some final numbers, but our broker is telling us that there is the potential for up to a 9% increase. We're currently using a 6.5% increase as our placeholder. So, our broker has done this in the past. You know, they want to prepare you for the worst, but I'm cautiously optimistic that that's what they're doing and that we will see a lower increase in that. But if that final number comes in at 9%, it will mean that all of our constitutional officers will need to revise their budget requests. Those requests will increase. General fund will need to give them more. And then also the BOCC will need to increase what we're budgeting for those expenses. And then we do have a little bit of capacity built in here as well, because you don't know who's going to have a plan change and go from single coverage to family coverage throughout the year. And when you have a vacancy, you can't really plan for if you're going to fill that vacancy with somebody with a higher tier of coverage. So we have a little bit of capacity built in here because we know those changes are going to happen throughout the year. We just don't know exactly what they're going to be.
So that 245 is based off the 6.5%?
Yes.
So what's the difference if it does go to not, say if it does not?
It'll be, 320, 325, somewhere in that neighborhood, and then rolling in the constitutional officers as well, we could be,
This figure on here is just BOCC.
yes,
Right.
yes.
When you talk about June 1 positions, that's planned positions, not filled.
That's exactly.
Hence my conversation earlier.
Yes.
We just need to take it easy.
Yes. And while not on this slide up here, we did receive notification of our Medicaid cost share for this next fiscal year, and it is about a $70,000 increase there as well. That Medicaid cost share is based on the state fiscal year. So our 70,000 includes a little bit of capacity because we have an unknown county fiscal year quarter from July 1, 2025 to September 30th of 2025 where we don't know what our Medicaid cost share is going to be yet. So we build in a little buffer there to make sure we have capacity to get through the year. And while these, as the chair said, these are just for our BOCC general fund, these expense increases flow through the constitutional offices as well, but they're just not recorded as wages or FRS or health insurance. They're recorded as just part of their transfer. So this slide should look very familiar from our April meeting. Our beginning fund balance for the fiscal year for the general fund, just under 6.2 million or just under 5 months of expenses. If we hadn't have added those new positions or we hadn't approved to start adding those June 1 positions, we were on track to end this fiscal year about 7.1 million or just under 6 months of expenses. But we added positions for the sheriff, for fire rescue, parks, facilities, and our golf course. And so that projection now we've circled the drain at $6.5 million, which is still a little over 5 months of expenses. And so, like I said, this hasn't changed significantly because we've only had that 1 month of financial reports since we had our April meeting, and we haven't actually onboarded all of those positions yet.
And what this does is this very healthy, and the citizens should be happy, is what this does is it gives us that next year the breath, it gives us the ability to breathe and let some things shake itself out to see where we land, because we've got some buffer in there that if we need to chew into, we can chew into. But we're in a good position. We just don't need to go from a good position to a bad position by being in a hurry. We just need to, we believe this coming up year is let's just take it easy, let's take a breath, and let's let some things play itself out.
Jess, can you go? And as a reminder, here's where our targets are. Our minimum of 25%, no less than 3 months, so we're just under 3.8 million, and then our maximum of 38, 4 months of expenses, just under 5 million. And as a reminder, so as our general fund costs increase, all of our costs increase in our general fund, our fund balance target increases as well. So say between now and July, we were to add another $500,000 to this budget, to this working budget, not out of the realm of possibility based on what we've talked about here today with CHP and our paramedic program and our IT standards. And so plus we don't have our nonprofit funding, so that would now make our new minimum target $4 million. And so while that's still not a critical situation, it just kind of helps demonstrate the relationship anytime we increase those expenses and how it increases our minimum fund balance target. not to single out the sheriff fund over the other constitutional officers, but because the sheriff fund is really neck and neck with the general fund for the largest operating fund of the BOCC, we also consider its position when we look at our big financial health picture. And so we began this year with about $3.5 million in fund balance here. And that is below our minimum target of 25% or just under 3 months of expenses. And so the board, along with the direction to go ahead and fill the new positions for the sheriff, June 1, also gave direction to unwind that $306,000 transfer that had been taken from the sheriff fund for the construction of the maintenance building. That will happen before this fiscal year's end, and because I know it's going to happen, I've kind of artificially smoothed this projection. And even with that smoothing and bringing that $300,000 back to them, we're now showing our sheriff fund dropping down to just over $3 million. Obviously, that doesn't include a return from the sheriff. It's too early to make a projection on if they're we won't know that for several months here. So. And here's where our targets are for our sheriff's fund. Yes. So a minimum of $3.8 million, and then their maximum target just over $5 million. So you can see at $3 million, we're close to $1 million short of that minimum target. And so, you know, some of you were here when we were weaning off of our ICE housing for prisoner revenue, and we had some uncertainty during that time about what the impacts were going to be and what the new sheriff's budget was going to look like once we got rid of that program. But in looking at the history of how the BOCC has funded the sheriff fund, we had a little bit of a trend of using some cash there in order to balance the budget, and so we've kind of got ourselves into a little bit of a situation here. And as we talked about, our policy requires us to make a plan to correct any fund that is not within policy targets. We've already started that with that $306,000 transfer coming back. And so the next step of the plan could be anything from transferring a portion of the general fund at one time and parking it in the sheriff fund, or incrementally over a couple years, but certainly something that needs to be tackled before we start slipping further and further away from our minimum target. Golf course. I'm going to go over this, and then I'm sure David's going to elaborate. Our golf course is close to getting started up, and we have about a $1.9 million budget right now in progress. We will continue to fine-tune this as we get actual data this year and as we bring on all of the staff that's needed to run the golf course. We do have a built-in contingency here to make sure we don't overspend. That's something we learned this year. We had all of our capital projects that were not included in our operating budget, and so we had to shift them off to make sure we had operating capacity. We're going to support the golf course fund with some transfer from the sewer fund for its portion of the recharge function. And again here, this is now going to be one of our larger operating funds, one of the big five. And so this fund will need to be able to generate some sort of profit in order to build a fund balance and now start complying with those minimum and targets and that maximum cap.
How much funding are we going to be able to transfer to use from the sewer?
That's about $218,000.
Out of the 1.9?
As I said, it's operate for profit. We're not planning on any subsidies. It doesn't make sense to subsidize it because it can make it on its own. And we're still planning to open up mid-August, and we'll bring you guys our rate schedule and everything, first meeting in August, so that we can go ahead and get going, and that's about it.
So I just like to summarize
Yeah.
that. Just because there's a $1.9 million budget, once you become profitable, that's not costing the taxpayers $1.9 million.
No, sir.
Revenue off of that should drive that budget.
That's right, exactly. This budget is built to make money. And that's the purpose of this, is just like other funds that we have, like the boating fund, with the boaters, they pay for that fund and the upkeep of the facilities. T-ball, football, basketball, baseball, soccer, all those people pay. There's no difference here. And
Because on the surface, this is larger than every constitutional officer's fund,
Right.
excepting the sheriff. So that's why it's important that we have that mindset and we make it profitable.
that's right, yeah, it's no reason why it can't be profitable, and, you got some folks out there that believe that golf should be subsidized, and I've yet to figure that one out. I don't know anywhere where I've heard of anybody, first I've ever learned that, you should have cheap golf. I don't understand that, but, you can go to putt-putt and play all you want, but,
Not a right.
it's not a right, it's nowhere in our Constitution, but we don't have a fair, it will be competitive with everyone, and it will have a top-notch quality golf course that I'll put up against any of them.
Yeah.
So, and it's something for us as a county to be proud of, and we should all, if you're local, and you should support it and support everything. And that support is all along with coming and playing in tournaments, buying stuff there, and helping stimulate the economy of our local and helping our local folks, because that's what it does. All the people we hiring are local. And
Environmental impact is.
environmental impact is tremendous, and there's, we may be $5 a round higher than golf course in Tallahassee, but, a municipal golf course in Tallahassee, but at the end of the day, you're going to spend $10 driving back and forth. All right, Commissioner Hess?
Yep.
And you're supporting Tallahassee versus supporting Wakulla County and Wakulla County citizens. All right.
Next slide, Jess. While this particular slide, this is not general fund related, it's a change from how we are currently handling this. So I want to be sure and point it out, as David touched on a little bit earlier, when we planned for our $30 million cash flow loan for our projects, we just split it half and half between our revenue stabilization fund and our access fee fund. When we did it that way, it made things very muddy, and so we had these loan funds commingled with our own local funds, and it was difficult at best and traumatic at worst to try to unravel it. And so going forward, we're not going to be doing that. We've established its own separate fund. It's going to be 435 loan on your sewer side. We're going to record all of our loan funds there and our principal and interest payments, and it'll be used strictly for sewer related projects. We really didn't have that many projects that were non-sewer related, and we've always been able to cash flow our typical grants, like our stop and our scrap projects and things like that. We've always been able, that's not a problem. So really the need for this was because of the amount of sewer projects that we had going on, yeah. And so we have spent the first $30 million in loan funds. We are close to needing to draw down some funding again, and so as David also mentioned, we've depleted our local funds that we had prior to the loan in our revenue stabilization fund and our sewer access fee fund. A lot of those were grant matches, a grant match for our radio system and our EOC construction that came out of our revenue stabilization fund. And then on our sewer side, we had our lift station 76 and wastewater treatment plant matches. And so going forward into the future, because we have depleted our local funds that we had prior to this $30 million loan, and I like to think of that more like a revolving kind of loan, we may need to incur some installment debt at some point in the future to be able to complete all these necessary planned infrastructure projects. But as that happens, we'll bring more information.
We're hoping not, but just to add to the list of things that we're going to be doing this coming up fiscal year, as Brandy mentioned, was the EOC. We also got the library. Those projects we'll be designing the library, and hopefully by the end of next fiscal year, we'll have to be going under construction. So between the library and the EOC, we're going to add that to building a $24 million wastewater treatment plant, doing another $30 million in septic and sewer projects. So it's not like when I say we need to take a breath, we're taking a breath. and realize, one of the folks that'll be leaving next year is our grants person. She's moving on. She'll have her PhD, and she'll be moving on to perform in that, which we're glad but then we got to replace her, and that's a person that's juggling about 45 grants at one time, and that's tough, and so that's that we got to transition that next year as well.
So we've mentioned the budget is due to you July 15th. We'll have our second workshop on that day. This is my final workshop that I will be presenting to you. I will certainly be here as a support role and heckling from the stands, but this is all I had to present to you today, unless you have any other questions for me.
You have any questions, Fred?
No, ma'am.
I just want to ask a question, or maybe this is more of a thought process for Quincy. On the golf course operations, the startup's doing $1.9 million. Just like Ralph said, and just like you explained, that's eventually going to pay for itself. So that money was literally what it says, to start up.
Yeah, that is initial startup. The budget will probably be right around that each year.
Okay.
But we'll also realize they'll hope, like a business, we'll have matching revenues that'll come in for that. And the idea is pardon the pun, but the sewer fund gives us a mulligan, a $217,000 mulligan a year. That helps us, and that actually helps us, fund this thing to where, because what I'd like to be able to do is set it up so that over the years, the golf, it can create enough revenue of its own to where it can buy its own equipment. It can buy its own stuff to where it doesn't cost the taxpayers a dime. It's purely self-sustaining, and that's the way we're trying to set this thing up.
Should be able to be a profitable business.
Yeah.
When you're not traveling?
Time of year he will.
Randy, can you tell me the big five again?
It's going to be our general fund,
Uh-huh.
sheriff,
Uh-huh.
golf course, road, and MSBU.
Exactly.
That's your big five.
Thank you.
Yeah, sewer to it, make it 6.
Sewer, but that's
And
your
road,
business.
yeah.
I said road, but
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Big six,
Big
sewer.
6.
Well, it was 5 until we added the golf course.
And also, we're touching on that. You notice we didn't mention an increase in the MSBU, and even though our study and Kelly's fantastic math that she did on this, on the MSBU fund indicated that we needed to have a increase this year, but what I felt like was that one is it's taken us 6 months into the year to do what we said we were going to do. Mm-hmm. And we're just not hiring those folks, so there's your increase. And so therefore, I didn't think it was justifiable whatsoever to be able to ask for that.
The only increase we're talking about right now is
Sure.
the CPI that's already built in.
That's right, and also that we're not going to be asking for CPI in solid waste, but that will end after this fiscal year, after this got coming.
Increase last year.
That's right, but we'll be able to absorb the waste pro increase in this budget, and reflects that. But the next year after that, we'll need to have an increase, primarily due to we've got a plan to start doing some improvements at the landfill to improve that facility, and it's time to do that.
When's our contract up again with Waste Pro?
I don't know which.
7 more years.
It's been a while.
7 years?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was a
Yeah,
2-year.
they're doing good right now. I can say they've really improved their organization. And
Is Fox
they've taken a lot of steps to make it better.
self-insured?
Yeah,
They are?
well, through, yeah, it's insured by the counties. It's members like a co-op.
Okay.
Hey,
We have-
Cynthia, what percentage is that in a year?
Sewer?
Yeah,
What was the sewer
It's
increase?
2.5 on the sewer.
Yeah,
yeah, so you got an estimate of what that would be on the standard bill?
we got it, I'd have to get it to you.
All right, I'm just curious.
Have we, and I don't know, this, with Waste Pro, when we came up for renegotiation last time, have we ever got any information from them regarding the recycling? I just keep hearing more and more that recycling is not cost effective and no one's making any money off of it and they're losing money. And I recycle. I generally have 3 bins about every week. I recycle like crazy, so I'm for it. I don't want anyone to think that I'm not. But I also want to make sure that we're actually doing something, because our citizens are paying more to have that service and have that second truck. Are we actually achieving something, or does this feel good? And at some point, you don't have to necessarily answer that, but I'm just saying at some point, I think we need to ask that question and have them justify whether or not we're actually getting some bang for the buck by offering that.
So the way, and the way the contract reads, and as part of the negotiations, I wasn't here, I just came in right at the end of it, but Waste Pro threw in the recycling at their cost, because at that point in time, recycling there was a return on the investment there. Since then, and all indication is there's no return on investment anymore. Marpan is charging now, I can't remember what the number he told us. We met with them last week or a week before.
Costing them more to Marpan.
Costing them more to unload it. Now they have to pay versus get paid to unload it. And so, the problem becomes is they'll have to, then what happens to it from there, don't know. I think Marpan does do the right thing, but are we willing to do that? One of the things we're going to be doing this year as part of our meeting with them is Amanda is preparing and she'll be working with Kinsey on a questionnaire to go out to the public. Would you want to pay, now you don't pay for recycling, would you want to pay for recycling, or would you want to see an increase in your garbage for recycling, realizing that it's not a profitable business and we're not sure that everything's being recycled that can be recycled? Because the answer to that is tough. And
Well,
a lot of communities.
that's an adult conversation.
That's an adult conversation.
Yeah,
A lot of
really
communities.
doing something. Nation's making ourselves feel good.
That's right. And nationwide, there's municipality after municipality going away from it because it's not profitable. And if there's not a market for it, then it's going somewhere. And it ain't going for what it was going for.
Well, the aluminum part is profitable. The rest of it is probably not.
Probably not. So,
And that's, I mean, if you're gonna buy, if you're into recycling, buy aluminum products.
Okay.
Because that's a business model that works.
hey, what would work great is if Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all of them would have a nickel back like they used to have on the bottles. You'd have an automatic recycling program back again. As a kid, we all found we'd go find a Coke bottle and we'd return it, buddy.
We clean the roads up.
That's exactly.
You never had to work in that.
I did.
All righty, is that it?
That's us.
That's us. We need a motion to adjourn, or we're good?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, got a motion
Can I
to...
make one more comment?
Absolutely.
Since it's your last time, Brandy, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
I
I'm
got
not even
high-
addressing that.
I got high hopes for Kelly, and I know you'll do a great job, but Brandy, you've knocked it out of the park for years and years and years, so thank you.
Y'all won't be seeing me but up at the podium.
Yeah.
I might present the next audit.
Oh, gosh. Oh,
We'll
goodness.
invite Randy back.
That's right.
Exactly.
Brandy, I'm proud of her. She's done a tremendous job, and where she's going, she'll do a tremendous job as well. And I have all the confidence in the world in Kelly. She's going to step in and do well as well. I think we're in good shape, and
For the shape we're
for the
in.
shape we're in, that's Brandy's favorite saying. So I thank Brandy as well. She's awesome. Thank you.
We're in good shape.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, sir.
Get up straight.